How of you delicious people. Here's one recommendation of a song that I was listening to I don't know, it just popped in there. There's this one song that I was listening to on YouTube once I figured out what the frickin' song was. Uh, there's this one song by Kevin Little called "Turn Me On." What a good song! I actually liked it. Eventually, I watched the variation of the song where it was uh, hold let me hold you, and then it was turn me on, and it was like cheat code and like Dante something. Uh, if you probably look for the word uh, turn me on song, you probably find that somewhere. I thought it was a pretty good song. I really liked it. I'm probably not going to say the lyrics of the song because ultimately, it's kind of a vulgar-ish like song, but it's a good song. I liked it. Ultimately, I was kind of just randomly listening to a lot of music after the Masked Singer was over. I don't know. I was just kind of sifting through and just kind of looking at music lately because I don't know. I'm just kind of in the kick again of like, hey, let's listen to some music. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be like, oh my god, this is amazing. No, like I found some treasure trove of music. No, like it just has to be something that sounds interesting enough to listen to. So, anyways, going into season 4, episode 9. Season 4, episode 9. So, ultimately, as you can see, a character called Broccoli. There are very few people that had gone home in this episode, so ultimately, I will let you know who mascotted name had gone home tonight. More than likely, by this image, you could probably figure out who had gone home. Well, it was Broccoli. I will not actually tell you who the person was until the very end of the episode, and then we'll be doing some recap, yo. Some delicious recap. Ultimately, at the end of the day, let's go out of our way to guess who the other people are, and then we'll guess who the broccoli person is. So, let's get into this. Drop a fat beat, everybody. Not that fat beat. Little could you anyways, moving on. Jellyfish ultimately just very good performance. It seems like Jellyfish per episode to episode is getting better every single episode. Ultimately, I still barely know who this person is, but at the end of the day, we could say that this person eventually will probably be one of two people, I hope, that I've chosen so far. It seemed like within this episode, it seemed like I justifiably went a lot with the judge's answers. When looking at it, I was like, you know what? Like, those judges are actually having some good answers this week. Bravo to the judges. Mwah to them. Good guesses this week, because ultimately, I can concur that maybe they are onto something. But let's go on to who I think the jellyfish could be. So ultimately, if you do not know Kylie Jenner, keeping up with the Kardashians and being a self-made bajillionaire, whichever air she's dare say in there with those peoples. You know what? I've probably watched maybe one, maybe two episodes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and I could not rationally understand ever watching more than that. Not because I'm a person that, like, that wants to see dumb people do dumb stuff. It's just I just can't watch the show. No offense to anybody who likes keeping up with the Kardashians. I just I just don't watch reality shows anymore. I used to, especially when MTV was doing the Real World and VH1 was doing the Surreal Life, and there was other shows with reality things going on at some point. There were some interesting game shows that had like a reality like element into it at some points, but then eventually those quite fizzled out. Sadly, heartbreakingly. Eventually, not everything lasts forever. Speaking of lasting forever, as this speech is going on to, Dakota Fanning. Dakota Fanning. Ultimately, again, one of the guesses from a week ago, or however long a year, a time of two of guessing. There was a fan ultimately in one of the clue packages, so I don't know. I'm going with Dakota Fanning still, even though my guesses are just like, how is this going to work out? This makes no sense. Why am I going with this person? It makes no sense any longer. I don't know. I'm just gonna go along with this and be smacked in the face with incorrect guesses. But I don't know. Who knows? Anything could happen in this show. Let's move on. So, ultimately, the mushroom. So, the mushroom. I don't know who this freaking person is. I don't know who this is. Good God, the worst thing in the world is to basically have a person that could seemingly sing and sound like anybody. Whoever this person is a person that could throw his voice all over the place. He should be hired to be a ventriloquist because of how freaking just all over the place and anywhere this person's voice is. Unbelievably so. So, I'm still going with Sam Smith and Jaden Smith. We're going to smith our way to eventually, hopefully, or sniff our way to find out who this person is at the end of it all and be completely wrong. Just be like, oh my god, I didn't know that this was this person the entire time. What the fuck? This is garbage. And be just disappointed. So at the end of the day, there's probably no way I'm ever going to get this character right. So might as well just be no guesses whatsoever because I know I'm going to get this person wrong. It's going to happen regardless. Anyways, so moving on. It's inevitable. I'm going to get it wrong. It's okay. So, broccoli, the person going home tonight. So, I ultimately continue to guess all the time that it was Jim Belushi because ultimately I had seen the movie K9 and I had seen other things, according to Jim, stuff that Jim Belushi was on, and ultimately that was maybe a quite possible solid guess. Ultimately, I assumed maybe it was Frank Caliendo because ultimately I had seen him do any number of impressions and voices and stuff like that. Plus, I figured that somebody from football at some point would be, or the NFL stuff would be coming over here and doing something. But then tonight, we had Robin Thicke also throw a name of Paul Anka, which ultimately, when looking at it, I'm like, okay. At first, I wasn't familiar with this person, but then eventually, while watching this show with my mom, ultimately she had uh, shown me some song of Paul Anka, which I actually was familiar with. So I'm like, oh yeah, that could actually be this person. Yeah. I think the song about the shoulder uh, was one that I I was familiar with. But I think the more ones that I was probably familiar with Paul Anka was Puppy Love or reasonably another song at some point. But anyways, more than likely, Paul Anka might be a good guess, but in the end, I'm not even gonna pretend that I'm just like, man, these guesses are getting severely hard with this group C, this last one. God, I hated these guesses because reasonably there is no real knowledge behind them. It was just like cross your fingers, cross your legs, and hope you don't have to walk somewhere because good luck with that. But so now we are going to, how long have I been talking for? 11 minutes. Good, great, grand. So now I am going to unsheath who ultimately the Broccoli Man was. Well, we had such a good season. We had such a good season in this episode. We had such a good run. But the season isn't over yet, so it doesn't, like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. So let's reveal who the Broccoli was. Let's get it over with. Alright, so we're going to do this right now. If you do not want to get spoiled of the show, you could go on Hulu, and go and check every one of these episodes out. Without a doubt, you can go out of way to say that you are all caught up with The Masked Singer, especially if you're going to go to Season 1, Episode 1, and work your way to 4 seasons of work. Good luck with that. But at the end of the day, I'm going to reveal to you, ultimately who is the Broccoli Man right now. Paul Anka, singer, songwriter, actor. So ultimately, again, I knew him from Puppy Love, and they called it Puppy Love. Yeah, what a great song. I love that. Ultimately, there was I'm You're Having My Baby, and I just want to say how much I love you, or something like that. That was the other song. You're Having My Baby. Like I was just like, man, like this, like a lot of these songs sound like the one song from Three Men and a Baby. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. You know, I love that. I love that song from Three Men and a Baby. Yes, I've seen Three Men and a Baby with Tom Selleck and the God, what is his name? The guy from Short Circuit, the guy from Police Academy. I want to say Steve Guttenberg. Is that right? And then Ted Danson. I named all three of them. Good grief. How did I know any of those? I don't remember because my life becomes a blur, especially when I have to remember people's names. But Steve Guttenberg, good on you, man, for the career that you ended up doing. Eventually, I'd like to see him do more stuff, but anyways, it ends up being what it ends up being. Steve Guttenberg, thumbs up, buddy. But anyways, Paul Anka, actually, some pretty good hits. Legitimately, I think every once in a while you'll find you'll find a movie that does have this song somewhere. Maybe not Puppy Love, but probably every once in a while get a song by Paul Anka in a movie somewhere. I think yeah, it kind of haunts me like where I heard these songs from, because I feel like it was in. I feel like these songs were in a movie somewhere, and that's where I know them from. like a werewolf movie or something like that. You would have thought like Puppy Love would have been in like a werewolf movie or something. I don't know, but Paul Anka. It looks like that answer was, I guess, correct because name and Paul and Anka and cool songs that I actually enjoy. That's the thing about me. When I like music, I tend to like a lot of random stuff. And ultimately, I tend to eventually just have things just bizarrely pop in there. And I'm like, how in the do I remember this? Because ultimately, eventually, you tie a song with a movie, and because ultimately, for me, how I can remember music is tying it to a movie somewhere, which ultimately is the visual to help remember the song title. So, if anything, if there was ever a song from a movie, like I could probably remember like where that comes from, like Johnny Be Good, Back to the Future, uh, and so on and so forth. As mentioning one. Anyways, so Paulinka was broccoli, and recently is actually nice to like. What a beautiful speech that every single person really does at the end of these shows when they get unmasked, instead of unmasks. Maybe they can all get unmasks, but we're gonna get them unmasked. So Paul Anka, actually, like, you know what? I kind of liked some of the stuff that he did. There are some times where I feel um, there's some times when there's some songs where I'm like, but actually, like Paul Anka was actually pretty good in this season. Um, like sadly, it took me so long to actually think it was Paul Anka because I was like, okay, like something about this, like I don't know what quite sounded familiar, and but it took me Robin Thicke to mention to me who Paul Anka was, and I was like, okay, well actually, yeah, Puppy Love, yeah, I remember that song. Luckily enough for me. So ultimately, that is another, I guess, win under our belt. But at the end of the day, could we really say that it's a win? Could we? Can we just take the victory and just walk out of here at the end of the day, I guess? So let's move on to ultimately the season recapping so far. So all that I have to say is there's more to life than what you can gobble. There are some times when you gotta just come home to roost and just really look at Ken's goofy looking hat and dare in fact say that I guess we are on close to being on our way to not only one, loving Ken for how good spirit he is, but then at the end of the day, we have a lot of chickens going home to roost. And that is all that we have to say here. If we had an arm and a drumstick and leg and to throw out everything, we are still pretty good in a lot of aspects because I think some people who might get unmasked within this season, I think I have cemented that they are quite possibly right at the end of the day. So I think in a lot of ways we can ultimately say that Ken in the end is the winner out of all this. Especially this episode. Good sport Ken was. Yeah. I love how funny he is. We also had a impressionist in here this episode, and ultimately I was just kind of like, okay, there's some impressions that were really good, and there was some that was kind of like in and out, I guess. It was kind of meh. You can't flack him. You can't flack him for trying. Just having fun. Reasonably within this episode, we had really a lot of a lot of interesting guesses compared to some other episodes. Um, Luckily, I think nobody backpedaled on their very first guess and just went with that. I think a lot of people went their own way because ultimately they were just like, I don't know who this person is. I have no clue. Luckily for some people, it seems that Jesse McCarthy is still pulling ahead with uh, the most guesses so far, and bravo to her because normally it seems more and more per season. It seems like she has like a lot of research that she's doing, a lot of prepping that she's doing, and good for her. When also looking at it, it seems that a lot of the guesses are getting better as the season goes. Because recently there was a lot of times that I would ultimately say, I'm like, you know what? Like the guesses for every judge are garbage. I hate all the guesses and like, But actually, for most of this season, people are pretty much on the real straight and narrow. Even Ken got one right. Good for him. Good for him. But at the end of the day, we had a double elimination in the last episode, uh, and ultimately, we're still pretty much in the running. Still, I think, even if we lost here, even if we got things wrong, then we could just go on to the next episode because ultimately we will have a different group of people, I would hope, within the next episode. So I'm feeling pretty good about my chances. I'm feeling pretty good about being able to at least beat the spread or be able to uh, figure out who these people are by and large uh, before it goes to me going, I'm not sure. So I think I've kind of narrowed down who people are by and large instead of randomly guessing now. There's not much randomness into it unless you're calling anybody in Group C a random guess. But ultimately, yeah, I'm feeling good about these guesses. I'm ultimately just going like, you know what? This is going to be a close season compared to others. And so I'll just let this season go. If I get everything wrong or I get too many wrong, it's okay at the end of the day because I've had so many successful seasons so far that by and large, it's going to get harder. It's going to get unbelievably just like horrible, horrifying, like a chicken stuck on someone's head. Or a turkey. It's a turkey. It's not a chicken. Look, Ma, I'm eating chicken. Yeah, it's Dracula dead and loving it because wrong me, wrong my brains out. If I'm wrong, then wrong brains. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get out of here. I had fun in this review. I had fun in this episode. And so reasonably, luckily we had a Thanksgiving Day special for the Mass Singer. Even though reasonably, I'm like, why couldn't they have just done this Wednesday? Why do they have to do it on Thanksgiving? This makes no sense. And more than likely, this episode was pre recorded, so reasonably, if it would have been Thanksgiving, yeah, it just would have. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.